Good morning. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted via WebEx, an online digital platform, and will be live streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Nancy Oman, and I will be chairing this hearing. Panel members participating via WebEx and who can be seen and heard are Carl Kniffel, Peter Reid, and Larry Clay. City staff will be assisting us throughout the meeting, including moderating the WebEx platform. Agents, applicants, and other interested parties participating in this virtual hearing registered in advance and will be connecting through WebEx using a compatible electronic device. Their participation will be through audio only. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone who wants to receive a copy of the committee's decision for an application must submit a written request by email to the general email address for the Committee of Adjustment, Toronto and East York District Office. Please include your name, address, and email address. All Committee of Adjustment and TLAB notifications and appeal updates will be sent by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, known as TLAB, or, in some limited circumstances, to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, known as LPAT. Appeal instructions will be set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. Participants who have registered in advance will be connected to this virtual hearing and will be muted automatically upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with his or her presentation, if required, and the committee may ask questions and/or take the matter directly into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly state your name and address. Please confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. Where required, the agent or applicant will proceed first with a presentation of the application. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have completed their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will be unmuted and will have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. Please note, the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes of the last Committee of Adjustment public hearing been confirmed by the members?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Members or staff, do you have any interests to declare in the morning time slots?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Madam Deputy
No.
Secretary, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any requests to withdraw or close an application?
Yes, Madam Chair, for you. There is a file for 18 Curzon Street, A1266/19 TEY. The applicant no longer wants to proceed with the application. It was scheduled, there was a notice issued, and I believe there is no refund for this proposal.
Okay, thank you, members. I need a motion to close 18 Curzon Street, file AA 1266/19TEY without refund.
So moved.
It's moved by Mr. Nipfel. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? The application has been closed without refund.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're now ready to proceed with the hearing.
Actually, through you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to just ask if you wouldn't mind going a little bit out of order today. Early this morning, we found out that item number 19, which was to be heard by the committee in February and got deferred, sorry, number 9 for Holborn. It was to have been scheduled for hearing in February, but got pulled from the agenda due to an error in the variance for height. Revised zoning review was provided, and it was rescheduled for today, but in the production of the notice of public hearing for today, the height variance did not get changed correctly. It's actually more than what's in your notice today, so a further notice will have to be issued. And the applicant is being advised that they should discuss the matter with planning. So it will have to be deferred for a maximum of 3 months.
Just my only question, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are we able to do that? It's in the 11 o'clock time slot? Or are they aware and we know we're not going to have any speakers?
They're aware and nobody's registered to speak.
Okay,
I think the applicant is on, we have him
in the queue?
he's available to discuss or to make a comment.
Okay. Can you bring him in?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Just bear with
I'm
me.
okay. How are you?
I'm okay. Bear with me 1 second.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Madam Chair, I've made a very big mistake.
Okay.
There is somebody here who's interested. Is it the applicant?
Just bear with us 1 moment. We just have to.
Sorry, the neighbor at 195 Holborn Avenue has registered to speak. So maybe this should be held until 11 o'clock. My apologies.
Okay, is this Mr. Baboudi?
It's correct, sir.
Okay,
This is
so,
Sherwin Farzan Deputy.
yeah, so I'm sorry, this is in the 11 o'clock time slot, so we're going to have to stand you down because there is somebody who wants to speak, a neighbor.
I misunderstood. I thought
So
there was no-
my apologies. We'll just go in order here.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have to wait till
Yeah,
11 o'clock.
unfortunately, you're going to have to wait because this is in the 11 o'clock time slot. So because there is a neighbor, we can't deal with it now. So we have to go in order of the application.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, if the neighbor had registered right now, we could have dealt with it.
Okay. No problem. All right, so we'll start with item number 1, which is 323 Willow Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from the Director of Community Planning, Toronto East York District. And we have correspondence in support from number 325, which is adjacent. If I could please have the agent identify him or herself. Is the agent there for Willow? Ms. Daska?
Yes.
Okay, can I just have you identify yourself for the record, please?
It's Carolina Adamska from Design Studio, and the address is 46 Beachview Crescent. I'm going to speak about 323 Willow Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if my members need a presentation or not. Panel members, do we need a presentation? No? Are there any questions?
Chair, just a quick question. I noticed that the variance is for the exterior sidewall. There's no variance required for overall height. Is that our understanding?
Ms. Adamska, can you please respond?
I think she did. She said correct.
Okay, I didn't hear it. Okay,
Yes, that's correct. It's the side, like the maximum permitted height of the,
okay, we're not hearing all you're saying. I need you to either speak in the mic, because half of what you said cut out.
oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Right now I can, yeah, but we missed half of the sentence.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, the height's not the issue, it's the side lot. So the maximum permitted height of all the side exterior main walls facing a side lot line is 7.5 meters, but we're proposing.
You're cut, we're not hearing you again after you started to say we're proposing.
The exterior main wall can't be kept at 7.8 meters because we won't have a decent interior ceiling height. And also there's several homes on Willow Avenue that have 3-story additions. With this particular addition, there's going to be no balconies on the front or back, so privacy wouldn't be an issue. The window in the back facing east into the backyard is more of a clear story window. And the front facade is in keeping with the original design of the home. And also the neighbors are, they're not against the construction, they're all for it, so.
Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. Clay?
So there's no push from any of the neighbors.
Yes, Chair, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, panel members? Okay, seeing none, we'll take it into committee for discussion and a motion.
Madam Chairman,
Oh, sorry, Carl, go ahead.
unless there are any other questions, I had some concern with this application initially because of the height. Looking at the rather unusual architecture on the street and the way in which the third story has been implemented, I think, subject to the planning department conditions which speak to trying to ameliorate the height, I think that the variance is reasonable and appropriate. And, anyone has any further questions, I'd like to move approval subject to the planning department condition.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so I have a
Motion, Carl?
So I have a motion to approve, including the conditions in the planning report dated March 18th, 2020, moved by Mr. Nifl. Do I have a seconder?
Sure, I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Your application's been approved unanimously. Okay, the next item is item number 2, 15 ROEHAMPTON Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Zach Watson, the agent. Parking supply study prepared by David B. Richardson and Raymond Maitall, WSP Canada Group Limited. We have previous committee decisions affecting this property, actually affecting 2263 to 2287 Yonge, as well as 22 to 31 Roehampton, 15 and 31 Roehampton, and 2281 Yonge Street. If I could have the agent please identify himself for the panel.
Yes, it's Roy Vericat. Can you hear me?
I can. Are you there?
Okay, it's Roy. Yes, I am. So it's Roy Vericat, the applicant presenting to 15 Roehampton. I'm also the architect of the project.
Okay, you're
Who's involved
cutting. You are.
throughout the process.
Okay, you're cutting in and out a bit.
Okay, I'll get a little
Okay.
closer to my speaker here.
All right. While you're
Okay.
while you're checking that, I'll see if the panel members need a presentation. I can't see them.
I'm fine, Chair.
Okay. Just one moment. Okay. Mr. Reed, Mr. Nipfel, do you need a presentation or can we go to questions? No? Okay, do any of the panel members have any questions of Mr. Varichelli?
I have one question. Could you clarify whether this application is going to in any way affect visitor parking for the residential component?
So, Carl, it's Roy speaking. So Carl, we don't have any visitor parking. We have basically 303 resident parking plus 70 commercial parking, which is used for the visitors. And we have 16 auto share. So we're not deleting 63 spaces. We're actually trying to create flexibility for the 63 spaces so that our renters, the residential renters and office users can use the spaces. So right now the spaces are sitting most of the time empty, and some of the office visitors are wanting to park there. And this is the reason why we're doing this. Right? So we're not reducing the cars. As I said, we're just trying to create more flexibility.
So visitors then would use the commercial parking.
Yes, the commercial parking plus these 63 spaces. So whoever's visiting, if it's an office patron, if it's a residential visitor, if it's a renter visiting, if it's a retail visitor, they would be using these spaces also.
Okay, very, very flexible approach. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, panel members? No more questions? Okay, we'll take it into committee for, sorry, I'm not sure who's speaking, but we're ready to go in.
Just a point of clarification.
Sure.
Hello?
I'm sorry, you're cutting out.
If I can just explain something. In the public hearing notice.
I can't hear what
In
you're.
the public hearing notice.
Uh-huh. But it's cutting out.
Okay, in the public hearing notice. Can you hear me now?
Okay, Mr. Varichelli, the only thing we heard is in the
Hold on.
public hearing notice, because you're really kind of fading in and out here. So is something you want to clarify?
Public hearing notice.
Yeah,
It says 24 regular spaces plus 2. It should be 26 regular and 6 small car.
okay,
One men's, it says 34 regular plus 3 small cars. It should be 28 plus 3 small cars. The totals work the same. So there was some kind of typing errors, I guess, in the public hearing notice.
okay, you really cut in and out. So the one thing I got is that 24 regular-sized spaces should be 26. Is that right, in the purpose?
Yes,
And then how many small car did you say? 6?
6.
Okay, and then when it goes on to say 34 regular spaces, is that correct?
Yes. No, that should be 28.
That should be 28. And then what about the 3 small car spaces on P1 mezzanine? Is that correct?
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm sorry, didn't hear you.
Okay.
Is the number 3 small car spaces on P1, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're changing it to 26 regular-sized spaces and 6 small spaces on P1 level, and 38 regular-sized spaces and 3 small spaces on the P1 mezzanine level.
28, not 38.
Oh, sorry, 28. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So panel members will take it into committee with those amendments to the purpose of the application.
Well, maybe I'll start. This seems quite reasonable, given what I think we all acknowledge in some of the trends that are happening in major residential towers in the downtown area where people aren't using cars any longer. And particularly this site, which is on the Young line and on the new proposed Eglinton line. I think the public transit aspect of it supports that there isn't really that need for the number of parking spots that sometimes the official plan requires. So I think this is quite reasonable and a reflection of what the reality is actually happening out there. So I'd support it.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Otherwise, I'll have Mr. Clay go ahead with a motion if he chooses to do so.
Sure. Sure, I'll simply move approval. I don't believe there are any conditions.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? Your application has been approved unanimously as amended with the purpose.
Thank you, committee. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. The next item is item number 3, 581 Crawford Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of surveys, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a previous committee decision affecting the subject property, and we have a staff report from Development Engineering. Okay, if I could have the applicant or agent please identify himself.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Giorgio Lolos.
Okay. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Or actually, I read that already, sorry. Do we need a presentation? No? Okay, do any of the members have any questions? Mr. Reid.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question about variance number 2 with the angular plane. And I'm wondering if that's actually required. It seems like, maybe I'm misreading the plans, but it seems like the proposed laneway suite is further than 7.5 meters from the house. If the applicant could clarify that.
Through the chair. Good morning, Peter. The variance itself, it does seem a little sort of uncalled for, but the reason why we're asking for that variance is because of the proposed dormer width that actually is above that 4-meter plane factor. We're allowed 40% of overall wall area above that. If you actually look at the rear elevation, which is actually item page number, the other one, I had it here in front of me recently. Here. It's actually page 11, A11. One more. There we go, right there. So basically, the 4-meter plane line is where it is. It's the areas for the dormer widths above that plane line that's activating this variance. We're permitted 40% of a dormer area above that plane. We're asking for 55%. So we're about 15% over the overall maximum dormer width that we can sort of entertain. Unfortunately, given our design criteria and necessities, we had to ask for this variance. Sorry, I can't hear you, Chris. Hi, Peter.
Okay, are there, does that answer your question,
Can
Mr.
I just,
Reid?
mostly, but the distance from the house is above 7.5 meters. Is that correct?
0.5. It's greater than 7.5, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Panel members, do you have any further questions of Mr. Lolos?
Chair, I do. Just a couple of quick ones. The soft landscaping, is that an is the existing paving stone in the backyard, is that an existing condition?
Through the chair, good morning, Larry. Yes, the existing area in front of the main body of the garage is an existing condition. Basically, thinking the existing garage is existing. We're just putting a second suite over it. So the area in front of that is all concrete paved as it is. And given the scenario that it has an existing double door situation, there really is no area to entertain any soft area at all.
Okay, thank you. And that's fine. And you've seen the report from engineering?
Well, we've dealt with planning and engineering. We dealt with them during the process of the committee applications. We believe we satisfied their requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, panel members, do you have any further questions? Seeing none, we'll take it into committee. Oh, Carl, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have the mic on. I just wanted to confirm that the conditions proposed by Development Engineering, that the applicant believes he can meet those. I think they're standard laneway suite conditions, but they're quite extensive.
Again, to the chair, Carl, good morning, Carl. We do have the clearance for fire department to access the lane suite from Crawford itself. We'd have an accessible amount of area, so we meet all those criteria, Carl.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, any further questions? No? All right, we'll take it into committee. Any comments?
Madam Chairman, unless my colleagues have any concerns or questions, I'd like to move approval of the application to the engineering condition. I think this is a reasonable approach to laneway suites. I think that the issues have been well addressed, but the way in which the laneway suite is being incorporated is consistent with the neighborhood character, so I'm very pleased with it.
All right, I have a motion to approve, including the engineering conditions in the December 4th, 2019 report, moved by Mr. Nipfel. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Item number 4, 79 Harbert Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 6 photographs of the subject property. Correspondence in support from 108 Harbert Street. We have 3 form letters in support from number 77, which is adjacent, number 83, and number 108 Harbert. If I could have the app or the agent please identify himself.
Hi, present. It's James Waterfall from Elman Design.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go straight to questions? Okay, are there any questions of Mr. Waterfall?
Could I ask a point of clarification? I'm not clear from the submitted material. The existing garage has a pitched roof, but the drawings seem to suggest that there's a deck on the roof or on the top of the garage. Is that new construction? Is that part of the proposal?
That's correct. That is part of the proposal.
Well, it isn't actually to legalize and maintain the existing garage. You're doing an expansion of the existing garage. Is that correct? Expansion in terms of putting a deck, and the issue that I'm raising is that the parapet that surrounds the deck seems to be the thing that it creates a problem for building height. So.
Yeah, so it is an extension of the walls, the exterior walls, and they do create a taller parapet, and that does contravene the 45-degree. You can see on A2-5 actually quite clearly where that plane cuts through the parapet wall. And so that's the second issue on the zoning notice.
And have the neighbors at 81 been in touch with you at all? They would be the ones that would presumably be the most impacted if there was a privacy issue.
No, they haven't been in touch with us. The photos do provide some context, which I hope sort of show the neighbors to the south, I suppose, and the direct neighbor, 77, I believe, which is the other side of the lane, have been in touch, but not that particular one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Chair, maybe I can just weigh in. I just want to confirm. So this garage was built without a building permit. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the building was in rough shape, and the contractor was supposed to simply proceed with shoring up the building and doing repairs. Sort of rehabilitation work to the foundation and to the wood framing. And experienced, I would say, more issues during construction, to my knowledge, and proceeded to reframe the garage and repair footings extensively. And this is where I got involved.
Any further questions, panel members?
Just one last, I'm looking at, so the dwelling, it's a mixed use, is it? Has it got retail on the main floor and residential above? Is that the?
That's correct. Yeah, there's I guess a need to maintain the parking and the layout and all that. And yes, that's correct.
So the parapet is everything is constructed already then, basically, that we're talking?
That's right. I told them, sorry.
No, go ahead. Basically, everything the panel members are talking about, it's all physically there already.
Yes, the garage portion, but the stairway up, the deck work itself is not present. There's a roof protecting the structure, but the actual area that you could walk on has not been installed. And what looks like a catwalk is not present either.
I see. Any further
Can I
questions?
clarify, is the parapet there or not? It's not there at the present time, is it? The edging around the deck?
It is present, yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that work just proceeded, so they're not doing any more work. I assure you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further?
I have a question of clarification. So is this rooftop deck to be used by the business or for the apartment above?
It's the apartment above only.
Okay.
Yeah. The extra stair down is just for egress, bringing stuff up and down, not for use of any of the ground floor occupancy.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, panel members? Seeing none, we'll take it into committee. Any comments?
Chair, I just have maybe a question of staff, just unclear about process. So this structure was built without a building permit, yet I heard the proponent or the agent talk about structural improvements. And normally when you see structural improvements like that, a building permit requires that it be inspected. And I just wonder, if we, for example, were to approve the variance, is there any inspection of this that's required or through the building department? Or I'm just unclear about process.
Through Madam Chair, yes. The fact that they're coming to committee, if you approve it, then they'll be required to obtain permits and then there'll be inspections. Along that line, I think for the purpose of the application, if the committee wants to amend it to more accurately reflect what's being done, I'm proposing that it read, to complete the construction of a detached garage with a rooftop deck that was started without a building permit, and to construct a catwalk connecting the second floor of the main building to the rooftop deck and a staircase to grade.
Okay.
Is that accurate? I don't know if the applicant wants to confirm that.
So we're out of committee. Can the applicant just confirm that what the deputy secretary has read, which would be a change in the purpose, if that sort of describes what it is that you're seeking to legalize here?
Yes, I can confirm that's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll come back into committee. Any comments or a motion?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Yep.
I'll put forward a motion. I always have concerns when people commence these and they come to us halfway through or completed. So my concerns around that process, but I think the impacts of this are minor. And I think they actually make sense to create this kind of usable outdoor space in a in a quite confined alley setting. So I would support this with no conditions.
Okay, is that a motion or
That's a motion. I move a motion to approve without conditions.
as amending with the amended purpose?
With the amended purpose as read by Madam, by Anita. I forget your
Deputy
actual-
Secretary Treasurer.
Deputy Secretary. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I have a motion to approve with the purpose as amended, as read by the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, moved by Mr. Reid. Do I have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? The application has been unanimously approved with the amendment to the purpose.
Thank you.
Okay. The last item in the 10 o'clock time slot is 88 DuPont Street, item number 5. We have before us a copy of the survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a previous decision affecting the subject property. We have a staff report from the manager of permits and enforcement parking. If I can have the agent please identify himself. Mr. Wagner, are you there? Are you on mute? Because if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Mr. Wagner? For 88 DuPont Street. Okay, we're showing you as being there, so I'm not sure if you're on mute. On mute. We'll try calling you.
Mr. Wagner, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here on my cell phone.
Okay, there's a terrible echo. Are you outside or in your car?
Yeah, there's an echo. Hold on, please.
I mute him. He should be muted. That's strange.
Okay. Is it better now?
Oh yeah, way better.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm on my cell phone. Okay.
Okay.
Should I make a presentation?
No, can you start by identifying yourself and then I'll check with my member.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is Ferdinand Wagner. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Okay. Panel members, do we need a presentation for this item? No?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yesterday, in my review of the agenda, I noticed that this application is based on a waiver, and the applicant identified that they had 2 on-site front yard parking spaces, so that they were only asking for a variance of 1, but those front yard parking spaces are partially located on the city boulevard, so they can't be counted as legal zoning code size spaces. So for the purposes of your agenda today, I've amended the proposal just to indicate that they can't provide the required parking on site, but that they have 2 licensed boulevard parking spaces in the front.
Okay, so they are licensed then.
They are licensed spaces, but they can't be counted for zoning purposes.
I see.
Yeah, that is correct.
All right. Panel members, do you have any questions of Mr. Wagner? Seeing none? Okay, we'll take it into committee then. Any comments or a motion?
I'll start off. I'm fine with this. I mean, it does adding another rental unit, which I take it from the previous decision was more or less already approved. This is coming in to clarify through a variance about, is it FSI, I guess, huh? On number 1?
But I think number 1 is, yeah, for an interior change. Did you want to ask the applicant? Do you want to come out of committee?
No, I'm fine with it.
You're
I think,
okay, okay.
I just noticed I'm trying to relate these variances to the previous decision, and it seems it's just kind of supplementary to the existing approval that they've already received and clarifying the parking situation. I think, notwithstanding some of the restrictions, there is 2 parking spaces in front of the house, and I think that combined with the possibility of street parking should be sufficient to accommodate the residential unit. So, subject to my colleagues, I'm prepared to move a motion to approve.
I think they're okay with you going ahead.
Okay, I'll move a motion to approve this this application. I don't think there's any
No,
no concerns. Yeah.
there's no,
So I think
oh, there's just an advisory, but I didn't see any conditions. Are there any, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
There are no conditions, but they will have to.
Carl, your mic is muted.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are no conditions.
Okay, there are no conditions. So I have a motion by Mr. Clay to approve the application. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Nitfall. All in favor? The application has been approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We now stand recessed until 11 o'clock.
Carl, can we call Carl? I just like to test. Yeah, I just want to, Carl, what are you using for your microphone? Oh, did he mute himself?
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah, what are you using for your microphone? Your computer?
No, I'm just using my tablet.
Okay, you might need to speak directly at it, just because when you lean back, I think we don't hear you as well. So just be conscious of when you're speaking to speak close to the microphone, perhaps. That might solve the problem a bit.
It'd help if I put the microphone on now and again, wouldn't it?
We just missed half of what you
Yeah,
said.
you don't have a headset or different,
No, I don't.
okay.
Can you hear it is that okay like that?
Yes,
Yeah,
much
that's
better.
way better.
Okay, I'll make sure that I look at you guys and talk to the thing, and I'll also turn the mic on for once in a while.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're back, and we're starting with the 11 o'clock time slot, and the first item is item number 6, 3 Balsam Road. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 8 photographs of the subject property and of the neighboring property at number 5. Previous decision affecting the subject property. Email correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection. We have staff reports from Community Planning, Supervisor Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry, Supervisor Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, Urban Forestry, and from the TRCA. We have a 15-signature petition in support signed by occupants and owners of Balsam Avenue, Pine Glen Road, Pine Crescent, Spruce Hill Road, McLean Avenue, and Crown Park Road. We do have one speaker listed, and I'm just going to ask staff if the person is in the queue.
The agent is online, but the person in interest is not.
Okay, so to the agent, Mr. Giordano, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Giordano, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, can you just identify yourself for the record?
Absolutely. My name is, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Peter Giordano. I'm with David Small Designs, 1440 here, Ontario Street in Mississauga, the authorized agent for the subject property.
Okay, if you can just bear with us, we're going to attempt to contact the person who is listed as a speaker, the owner of number 1 Balsam Road.
Okay.
At the tone, please record your message. When you are finished recording, you may hang up or press pound.
Mr. Giordano, we're unable to get the person on the line, so I'm going to have to ask you to bear with us to the end of this time slot while we try to connect with this individual, and if we do not, we will hear you at that time. So there's only 4 other items in the time slot. So I'm sorry to have you stand down, but I would very much appreciate it.
That's fine. I do have a letter from number 1 in support of our application.
Oh, because they're listed as speakers, so do we have, like, did you just get that, or do we have that? I don't recall seeing it.
You don't have it. I've got 2 emails from both adjacent neighbors in support of the application, and I can forward them to you if you need.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the virtual meetings, like once the deadline has passed for materials, we can't consider it. Things are a little bit different now.
Understood.
Okay. So, and again, I can't tell from him being a speaker whether or not he's in favor or not. So I will ask you to just bear with us until we deal with the other items, and we'll keep trying.
Certainly.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to item number 7, 272 Windermere Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence from Helen Berezanski, the applicant, correspondence from Michael Flynn, the agent, who is requesting a deferral, staff reports from community planning, as well as tree protection, are asking for I believe a condition, I can't find it right now, but actually maybe not. Okay, we'll revisit that. We have correspondence in support from a lot of residents on Windermere, Gothic, Rivercrest, Dury, Southport Street, Ellis Avenue, Grenadier. We have a 22 signature petition in support, occupants of Windermere and Ewell. Correspondence in opposition from 274 Windermere, which is adjacent to the property, 278 Windermere, 273, 277, number 7 Ewell. We have correspondence from the Swansea Area Ratepayers Group, also in opposition, 251 Windermere and 5 Ewell Avenue. Can I have the agent please identify himself?
Hello, it's Michael Flynn speaking.
Okay, and you're asking for a deferral?
Yes.
And the reason is?
I think there's an inequity in the process, which obviously is a new process and therefore needs some work. But basically, we had a hearing scheduled for March the 25th, which was canceled due to the COVID scare, or whatever we're calling it. But the hearing notices contain deadlines. And so does the new hearing. So what happens here is we had 2 objectors at the time of the March 25th hearing, and now we have a large number of others. I don't believe that the additional objectors should have been allowed to be filed.
Okay, well,
because they didn't meet the deadline at that time. Now we are at a disadvantage of trying to deal with a whole bunch of objections, including Swansea ratepayers, under a deadline that isn't fair to us. So I would like to defer so that we can meet with Swansea ratepayers, for one, and some of these other neighbors, and see if we can't resolve some of these objections.
all right. So let me just see here. I'm going to ask staff can you perhaps start with Mr. Singh from the Swansea Ratepayers Association and just get him piped in?
Hi, Mr. Singh, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Just for the record, can you just identify yourself and who you're representing?
My name is Nicholas Singh, and I represent the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association group.
Okay, we're only dealing with a deferral request right now, not the application. If I could just have your comments regarding a deferral.
Yes, we're not sure what Mrs. Brzezinski will intend to do with the deferral. Mrs. Brzezinski and the association are well known to each other, and over the time period, there's been no effort to cooperate on this application whatsoever. So, despite Mrs. Brzezinski needing an expedited hearing, we weren't contacted in any way to try and expedite these matters.
Okay, I mean, I can't, there are absolutely no guarantees about expediting any hearing, so I guess I will just ask you, would you like to proceed today, or are you in support of a deferral?
Our preference is to proceed.
Okay. Okay, we're going to stand you down. I'm going to go to some of the other objectors now and see where they stand on a deferral. Okay, can you maybe start from the top, Mr. Tenson?
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Tenson?
Yes, that's me.
Can I just have you, for the record, identify yourself and your address, please?
Sure, I'm David Tenson, and I live at 278 Windermere Avenue.
Okay, just please to the deferral only. How do you feel about a deferral? Would you like to proceed today, or do you support the deferral the applicant's asking for?
Well, I thought the applicant was asking for 2 things. It started out by saying, or the agent started out by saying that there was some procedural unfairness, and whereas he was going to meet the objections of a couple of people, now he has to meet the objections of many people. If that argument is dropped, and it should be, I'm certainly prepared to proceed today.
Okay, I'm just going to ask the Deputy Secretary Treasurer to speak to the procedure, because as far as I know, everybody is sort of falling under the same envelope right now in terms of procedure. So, Madam Deputy Secretary, you have the floor.
My calendar. Okay, so through you, Madam Chair, the notices were issued well in advance of the March 25th public hearing when this application was first scheduled. The service disruption or the COVID emergency order came through on the 17th. Our office actually shut down on the 18th of March. Had the hearing not been canceled, the agendas and agenda materials would have been sent to the members on March 20th, and supplemental materials would have been accepted up to the 24th of March. So I'm not sure if the people who have registered to participate today wouldn't have registered back then. We still had time to accept materials prior to the March 25th hearing. Now that we're in a virtual hearing situation, we have a deadline of filing 5 days prior to the public hearing, 5 business days, materials, and just in the initial stages of virtual hearings, we are still doing a supplemental, but we're asking people, you know, it's not going to continue. We are sort of accommodating people. We're getting used to the new virtual hearing, but eventually we'll be holding to the 5-day filing. But registrants can register up until Monday prior to every hearing date.
Okay, Mr. Tenson, does that kind of answer your concerns about the issues raised regarding process?
Well, I think it does.
Sorry,
Hello?
Yeah, can you just repeat what you said, please?
Well, I think it may, if I understand what the registrar is saying, and what the registrar is saying is that if the proceeding goes ahead today, then all of the people who filed objections within the timeline for this hearing here today will be heard and will be noted.
Yeah, that's correct.
Then I'm prepared to proceed today.
Okay, thank you. If we can now go to Mr. Belage Corrigan.
Hi, good morning. It's Daniel Blake Corrigan. I'm the neighbor and property owner at 274 Windermere Avenue in Toronto.
Okay, just to the deferral, sir, please. Would you like to proceed today, or are you in agreement with the deferral?
I would like to proceed today, and if you look on file, there's a letter from our MP that they had requested that we expedite this process for Helen. So it's kind of contradictory that they're asking for a deferral while at the same time trying to expedite it. So I'm in favor of continuing today with the hearing.
Okay, thank you. If we can go to Stephanie Meligrana, please.
I live at 277 Windermere Avenue. I'm just juxtaposed to the house, and I am not in favor of the deferral because of the reasons already mentioned, and I'm prepared to go today. Many of us have taken time off work to prepare for this meeting, so I'm ready to go today.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Anna Kroll and Mark Consentino. Just if I could just clarify, sorry, there's a lot of background noise. I can't hear what you're saying at all, but I just want to be clear that one person to speak on the item.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
So we live at, this is Anna Kroll speaking from 7 WILLOW Avenue.
Okay, so just to the deferral, are you in agreement with the deferral, or would you like to proceed today?
We'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cohen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sort of, yeah.
Hi, sorry. Yes, we're the homeowners at 270 Windermere, and we're prepared to proceed today.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to the panel now. Panel members, you've heard all of the speakers that have registered, as well as Mr. Flynn, the agent, regarding the deferral only.
Madam Chair, I don't hear any support for the deferral, and in fact, it sounds as though the applicant may actually have second thoughts about a deferral, so I'm not prepared to support a deferral today.
Okay. So, Mr. Nipfel, I'm not prepared to support a deferral. Any comments, Mr. Clay, Mr. Reid, on the deferral?
You know, it's always good when people seem to be willing to talk about things. But in reading some of the correspondence and hearing the comments today, it sounds like positions are very strong and well entrenched, and I'm not sure if the deferral necessarily would satisfy those folks who have concerns. So I kind of agree with Carl. I think it may be best just to hear and have a discussion about this application today.
Okay, Mr. Reid?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think those are fair points. I often want to find a resolution prior to rejecting a file, but I think that, yeah, it seems like the grounds are staked, and I think we're better off just going ahead today.
Okay, I would echo the comments made. I'm not sure. I usually support, like all of you, having discussions. I'm not sure that in this case it will, you know, change either side's position. So I would. So I'm going to need a motion regarding the deferral.
I move that the deferral not be approved.
So all right. So I have a motion. Moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by, did I hear a seconder, Mr. Reid, that the deferral not be approved. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with the hearing then today. If I could have Mr. Flynn, please, you have 5 minutes to do a presentation starting, are you there?
Yes.
And before you go ahead, I just want to say to all of the speakers here, there are six speakers listed. Please pay attention to what the previous speakers ahead of you are saying so that we don't have the same issues repeated, because it doesn't advance the cause in any way. So as much as possible, we're looking for different concerns that were not raised by previous speakers. Okay, Mr. Flynn, go ahead, you have the floor, and I'm starting the clock now.
Thank you. All right, first of all, we believe that this is a reasonable application for that property and in that neighborhood. It has been reviewed by Planning Department, and Planning Department does not have an issue, although they have conditions. And we agree with their conditions and are willing to accept them. We have a large number of letters in support from neighbors in the neighborhood and on the street and Ewell. And we have obviously a large number of people in opposition. The people in opposition seem to believe that these minor variances are not minor. So I'm not sure that they understand the four tests or what minor variance means. They dwell on the word minor. Minor variance is a phrase which has been defined by the OMB and effectively means that a minor variance is a combination of size and impact. Now, where there is no impact, the size really doesn't matter, or at least that's my interpretation. So, what have we? We have a reasonable number of variances, some of which really have no impact on others. We have objections based on shadow, and shadow is typically not an issue in a residential neighborhood, or is not seen to be a valid objection. Many of the people objecting about shadow are on the south side of the street and are not affected at all. The property on the corner of Ewell and Windermere has a large tree which shadows the property 24 hours a day. And the neighbors on Ewell that object are removed by 3 or 4 properties. The properties immediately on Ewell and Windermere are not objecting. So I think that the shadow issue is not an issue. They also object, if I can find my papers again, there's some comment about primary residence, which is not a zoning issue. However, I will address it. At the current time, this is not the primary residence of the applicant, but it is intended to be. Both of the applicant and her husband are seniors and have severe leg problems, knees, et cetera. And the whole intent, or the driving intent of this application, is to permit them to install an elevator in the new house so that they can move freely between floors. At present, they are struggling just to climb to the second floor, which is their primary residence at the moment, which is just down the street from the applicant or the prime's property in this issue. So we don't believe that the length has any issue or creates any issue. The planning department does not believe that the length creates any issue, especially based on their conditions. And effectively, GFA or FSI has no negative impact, and it kind of goes on. There is research from the City of Toronto which shows that there are 183 minor variances within 500 meters of this property. So obviously it is a neighborhood in transition. It is seeing a lot of reinvestment, a lot of redevelopment, and the bylaws as they stand are potentially out of date, which is typical of bylaws when they're written anyway, because most bylaws, when they are approved, by the time they are approved, make a large percentage of the properties that they affect legal nonconforming, which makes no sense to me, but hardly matters. So at any rate, there are, and the planning opinion supports this, there are a large number of large renovations and minor variances within the greater neighborhood. 500 meters, I believe, is a fairly tight area.
Okay, you're at 5 minutes. If I can ask you to start wrapping up, that'd be great.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, so the planning experts in the planning department, City of Toronto, have no issue with this, except that they have added conditions. We believe that the large number of supporters show that we have been reasonable and that we have contacted the neighbors, contrary to earlier comments. We don't believe that the variances will create any unnecessary impact or any significant impact on surrounding properties, and we believe all of this is minor and minor variances, and we ask you to approve.
Okay, before I go to the opposition, I just have a quick question. You mentioned the planning department and 183 variances within 500 meters. How do these variances compare to what you're asking for? So for example, FSI, Like, did you look up?
There are a number that are in similar ranges. One is on Beresford, for example, which is a project that I did. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of pages these decisions are, but
Just
planning
in
department
a-
has reviewed the same.
In a
Sorry?
general, no, I was going to say just generally, we don't need you to read through 100 pages, but just generally, are the variances that you're asking for similar to what's within those 183 variances within the 500
Yes,
meter
they are.
radius? Okay. Panel members, do you have any questions of the agent before we go to the speakers? I can't see them.
No, thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. We'll have you back after we hear from all the speakers.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Tenson.
Hello.
Okay, you have 5 minutes starting now. You there? Can't hear you at all, Mr. Tenson, if you're there.
I'm here.
Okay, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I have several points to make. The first addresses what Mr. Flynn said about minor. He said something like size doesn't matter. Size always matters. And the essence of the objection is that this house is too big for the lot that it's proposed to be built upon. There are several variances that are requested that I would say are minor. Then there's a couple that I would say are major. And the whole cascade of all the variances means that there would be a very major change to this neighborhood if this were allowed to proceed. Two major variances that I say are being requested are the sidewall height, which would be 130% more than is allowed under the bylaws. That's 9.11 meters versus 7.0 meters. And then the main one is the floor space index. 0.60 is what is allowed. This home or house or whatever is requesting 0.96, which is 160% of 0.60. So that would be like going 160 kilometers an hour in a 100-kilometer zone. In Ontario, if you did that, you'd be pulled over, your car would be impounded, you'd lose your license, and you'd have to go see a judge to explain to him or her why the heck you should get your license back. Now, Mr. Flynn did not mention, or I guess he did mention, he mentioned the reason why the applicant is requesting these variances. And I would say the reason is no reason whatsoever. If there was a valid reason why they couldn't comply with the bylaws, they should have put it in their application. He's now said, well, we need an elevator. I took a quick look at the plans, and as best as I can tell, the elevator shaft space would be about 8 feet by 8 feet, and maybe I'm being generous, which would be about 64 square feet over 3 floors, might be 210 square feet. The impact of that square footage on 0.60, you wouldn't have an impact, and you probably wouldn't be here in front of this committee. So the reason is we need an elevator. Well, the elevator would take up that small amount of square footage, and yet they're proposing a building with 3,303 square feet in a neighborhood with houses about 2,000 feet, more or less. Now, on June the 15th, I emailed in 2 pictures, one of the front of the houses and one of the back of the houses. And looking at the back of the houses, we see a fence in the foreground. We see number 274, which is a red brick building with a beige one-story addition. And if we superimpose on that where the proposed structure would be, the very west wall would be a couple of feet behind the small garage we see at 274. Depending on how you read these plans, I believe the building would be about 13 feet above grade. So it would probably go about 5 or 6 or 7 feet above the fence on the north side of the subject property. That would go back about 6 or 8 feet. And then the second floor would project a further 10 feet above that from about where we see 2 tree trunks in the picture, the right tree trunk. That would go up 20 to 23 feet high. And then the third floor, which is set back from the front of the house, would go back in about a line with, or maybe slightly to the west of, the beige addition at 274. And in addition, there'd be a 10-foot deck extending to the west. The roof line would be 33 feet above that. This would be an imposing wall-like structure just to the south of 274, just to the north of 270.
Mr. Tenson, you're approaching 5 minutes, so I'm going to need you to wrap up.
And it would stick out like a sore thumb. Now, my last comment is about the support that was filed in assistance of the application. We've got the across the streeters who will be looking in front of this, so do they care? We've got people who aren't neighbors from all over West Toronto. We've got tenants of the applicant. The people of 270 are the applicant's tenants. And I would therefore say that if the applicant is going to submit support from her tenants, you should look upon her application with some suspicion. Her bona fides may not be there if she is going to her tenants and asking them to sign what looks like a kid's pledge sheet from a cookie drive or something. There's no indication that these people who have signed that pledge sheet have seen the plans, know what the plans entail, or have any appreciation as to what she's up to.
Mr. Tenson, you're at 6 minutes. I'm going to have to cut you off here.
Well, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Okay, if I could now ask Mr. Singh from the Swansea Ratepayers Association. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I'm starting your 5 minutes now, sir.
Thank you. We'll briefly review the letter we submitted regarding the depth, which Mr. Flynn addressed. The bylaw is intended to protect neighbors from extra large buildings and overshadowing. In this case, the building is not only going to be longer than is characteristic here, but it's also going to be higher, which is going to increase the amount of shadowing. And I can tell you that shadowing is very important to the neighbors here who enjoy their backyards, especially in the summer, and also do a lot of gardening. So sunlight is extremely important, and the size of this building is uncharacteristic for the neighborhood and produces a very undesirable effect. Regarding the heights, again, heights are an extremely sensitive issue and is pointed out at 2.11 meters. This is not minor or desirable. It doesn't meet the intent of limiting this building heights and doesn't reinforce the character of the adjoining neighborhood. They are also not necessary, and they appear to be luxury choices. Regarding the setback, on the one side, some of it's existing because there is an existing building, but the extension building, especially if it goes back 19 meters, and given the excessive FSI, there's no reason why this building couldn't be made smaller to accommodate the variance. Regarding the FSI, I'm going to get to that in a moment. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm going to go to some comments that Mr. Flynn made about the support that was sent in. He complained that some of the objectors actually are quite some distance away. I think if we have a look at the support that Mrs. Brzezinski has, 2 of them don't live in Swansea at all. 3 live elsewhere in Swansea, not adjacent to the building, and 2 don't live anywhere at all. Also, the building that was referred to on Beresford, I think, is also mentioned in correspondence. That building also is not in Swansea. So there aren't any real comparable buildings that we find here in the neighborhood. However, Mr. Flynn also mentioned, and some of the support also mentioned, changes to the neighborhood. We refer to Swansea or the area as an area in transition. The official plan argues for the protection of established neighborhoods. Swansea is an older neighborhood, over 100 years of established character, and where they point to the changes and support for the changes in character, I think this indicates how this building is opposed to the official plan, where it requires protection and enhancement of those characteristics. The zoning density for the property, again, it's at requested at 0.96. We point out that the plans actually have a different FSI. It's at 100.15% coverage. So there's a discrepancy between the application and the plan submitted with this. Also, if you look at Swansea, you find that there are 3 main zonings for density. One is at 0.35, 0.6, and at 1 times coverage. So there are places within Swansea where a building like this would be appropriate, but on this property, it isn't appropriate. Putting this particular building on this property is in effect rezoning the property to a 1 times coverage up from a 0.6. It would render the zoning bylaw moot, so it doesn't meet the intent of the bylaw in any way, and it also eliminates the need for bylaw amendments if we're going to go this route. So we submit that going from a 0.6 to 1 times coverage is not minor and should be refused by this committee.
Okay. Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
The variances here cumulatively, are there, because there was reference made to 183 variances in a 500-meter radius, are you aware of any other homes that have these variances together, or are they kind of some of the variances in some cases, or are you aware at all?
Different buildings do have different variances. Along this stretch of Windermere, I don't believe that there are any houses that have this cumulative number of variances per size, and certainly not at this magnitude.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any other questions of the speaker?
Chair, if I might, the representative of the Ratepayers Association, I assume, has a good knowledge of some of the development in and around the area. And I'm just looking on Windermere itself, even across the street from where this application is, it looks like there are new dwellings that have been recently built. They look rather large. And I know the applicant has made mention in their material that elsewhere along Windermere, there are similarly larger buildings. So I'm just wondering, from the ratepayers' perspective, given that Windermere is not a major thoroughfare, but it is a larger street, whether there's a view about some of the other developments along that corridor.
Sure. Some of the developments that have been cited by the developer are actually further south, which puts them on a hill. So that gives them a different grade when you're looking at how high they are. So it's very careful to include or exclude the basements when you're looking at these. And we believe that those buildings would not match up with the current one that they're comparing it to. 272 is a different beast altogether.
Okay, any further questions of the speaker? Okay, seeing none. So thank you very much, Mr. Singh. We'll go to Mr. Balaj Corrigan. Are you there?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, and I'm starting your 5 minutes now.
Sounds good. First off, in response to Mr. Flynn's comments about, obviously we're the owners at 274 Windermere, immediately to the north of the property in question. Because the house would block the southern exposure we have, especially in the winter months, it is going to affect the amount of natural light we have in our house and in our backyard. The tree that he mentioned in our backyard is kind of at the northwest corner of the lot. So yes, it would cast a shadow at a small portion of the day, but as you know, the sun is in the southern portion of the sky for the vast majority of the day. So that's just in response to his comment there. In regards to the minor variances, I know a few speakers have talked about this already, but when I casually took a look at the applications in our neighborhood for minor variances, a lot of them are for like a front porch, or if they are for renovation, they're for variances in maybe one direction, and they're not in excess of the bylaws the same way this one is. So because this application is asking for variances in literally every direction, going to the back, going to the front, going to the side, and going up, I don't, in my humble opinion, and I'll leave it to the committee to decide, but I don't consider these variances minor because of the cumulative effect of all the variances together. The other point I'd like to make, and I'll talk briefly on it because I know one of my other neighbors has much more knowledge about this than I do, but the amount of the lot that this building is going to be used and the amount it's going to take away from the soft landscaping that can be used at the property is a concern for me. Like the neighborhood, the green spaces is kind of what drew me and my wife to the neighborhood, and it's something that we'd like to preserve. We're a young couple starting our family there, and that's part of the reason we're so strongly opposed to it. To just make one final observation, the urban forestry report identified 2 trees that could potentially be affected. One was in the backyard of 272 Windermere. The other one was in the neighboring yard next door at 270. As of last week, Helen Brzezinski had one of her workers remove the tree in the backyard of 272 Windermere. I'm not sure if it was a protected tree or if she had a permit for it, but I just wanted to bring it to light at the hearing today. Aside from that, most of the other points have been covered. So in closing, I'd just like to request that the committee deny the variances on 272 Windermere.
Okay, thank you, sir. Panel members, any questions of the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. All right, the next speaker, Stephanie Maligrana.
Good morning. A lot of the points have already been mentioned, so I don't want to belabor those. Obviously, I agree it is a major variance, not a minor variance. Just a couple of points I do want to touch on. Number one, and I submitted a few things along with my letter, but number one, my concern is the intent of the building. This is not her primary residence. She has 3 houses on this block that I know of. There could be more. It is not a primary residence, and I do not believe, honestly, that an elderly couple that would want to put up with a massive renovation that is going to take years, suspecting years, The inconvenience of having an elevator, I honestly don't buy it. I believe this will be this will become a multiple family or rental units. There's already the talk of the nanny suite, and it does not make sense to me. So I don't buy the intent of the building. I also submitted bylaw infraction in 2000 where they had a widening of the driveway. She appealed because they wanted to just pour all over it between the two homes. There was talk of building or planting a tree, which was never done. This is a history of problems with dealing with how she does what she wants to do, and with no regard for the neighbors or the neighborhood. And I'm sorry, it is just not fair to these neighbors directly north to her that have just moved in. I think it's wrong. And I don't agree with this building at all. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any questions, panel members? Okay, thank you. The next speaker is either Anna Kroll or Mark Constantino. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm starting your time now.
Okay, just wanted to reiterate the points. A lot of these are maybe on paper minor variances, but again, the cumulative effect is quite large and quite a large impact on the neighborhood. Although it has been stated that there is no impact, we see this as a cumulative impact to the neighborhood. We are another young couple who have moved into this neighborhood for the green space, for the character of the neighborhood, and we feel like this would just destroy the character slowly, one house at a time. Additionally, just think about a large property size. We're concerned with the potential for increased stormwater management, just due to lack of impervious surfaces. This could put a strain on our sewer system, and we know a number of our neighbors have already experienced basement flooding, and we just don't want this to continue to happen, especially for ourselves as well. But yeah, we're just not we're opposed to this application with all the outlined variances.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the speaker? No? Okay. So we'll go to our final speaker, Mr. Cohen. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and I'm starting the clock now.
Perfect. So my name is Mark Cohen, and my wife and I are the property owners at 270 Windermere. So this is the property immediately south to the proposed development. A number of the points that have been made here have addressed some of our concerns. To reiterate, we are not supportive of the proposed variances at 272 Windermere for all the reasons that have been mentioned today, but also because of some of the reasons that have a direct impact on our property, and these were outlined, in our letter. Specific to our property, this is, as we see it, a massive increased risk of flooding to our home due to the displacement of soil that would be required to build a property of this size. And then also just a lack of access to the north side of our property, in addition to just common decency of building a home this size compared to the size, on either end. I find it interesting that all the opposition on this phone call and that has been voiced comes from the immediate neighbors of the proposed development, and all the support comes from those in the far vicinity who will be minimally, if at all, impacted by the proposed development. It's clear to me that in the application that was submitted in support, I guess Mr. Flynn or Ms. Brzezinski got our tenants. We're currently on an international assignment with work to support. So just to reiterate, if there is any support written down from the occupants of 270, the owners strongly oppose. Also, Mr. Flynn made the point about Ms. Brzezinski reaching out to neighbors, and you know, if Ms. Brzezinski, if Ms. Brzezinski wanted to find a mutual solution to what's being proposed here, she has not once reached out to us, nor has she made an attempt to have a conversation about what would be a reasonable development. Now, I mentioned earlier that we had immediate concerns as it related to our property. The first concern is just the sheer square footage of the proposed renovation. So we've taken a look at the drawings like everyone else, and under the current plans, the ground soil will be halved if this property is to go forward, which will have a massive impact on drainage and increase flooding risk to our home. Now, this area already has flooding issues, displacing soil, damage to existing tree roots, this close to the property line, tree removal, soil degradation, all these things, will contribute to increased risk of flooding. This will have a massive impact to houses on both sides of what's being proposed here. Our second concern is the lack of access to our property. Ms. Brzezinski has drawings drawn up that'll take the space in between our properties from 0.9 meters to 0.42 meters. The space between our homes is already very limited. She's going to be sandwiched up against ours. The proposed variance will limit our ability to access the side of our home to service and vent our gas fireplace and air conditioning units, which are located on the north side of our property. So in addition to all the concerns that have been addressed here, in addition to the ones I've mentioned in this time, I thank you for your time. We kindly ask for you to consider these concerns. In closing, we support home improvement, to be clear, and we're all for the betterment of the neighborhood. But this has to come when everyone can enjoy their homes, everyone can enjoy their properties, and not just the owners of 272, as it will negatively impact everyone else around them. Surely there's a more reasonable solution and mutually beneficial solution that can be reached. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Panel members, are there any questions of the speaker?
Chair, just quickly, I missed the speaker's address. Could you just confirm what your address is?
Yeah, we're the property owners of 270 Windermere, so this is the house immediately south of what's being proposed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cohen. Mr. Flynn, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to rebut the concerns that were raised. And I'm starting the clock now.
All right, thank you. If I can review each speaker's comment, I believe Mr. Tennyson was talking about the 0.96 FSI, talked about the elevator. He referred to his pictures, which I don't believe were relevant. But then he talks about the aggregate impact of the variances. I don't believe that there is an aggregate impact of these variances. Certainly there's a side yard, which is not significant. There's no front yard. There is rear yard, or length anyway. As you'll note from the planning comments, the third floor is considerably shorter than the second or the first floor. The second floor is shorter than the first floor. So the impact of the sun, for example, or shadowing, is greatly reduced because of that stepping in. So that's, it's an issue, but it's an urban setting. This is not farm country. This is not a 100-story apartment building. This is a 3-story home, and it's allowed to be a 3-story home. They are slightly above the height allowance for total height, and their sidewall height is a variance, but sidewall doesn't impact the abutting neighbors. So I believe his primary issue was 0.96 FSI. And as I've stated earlier, that is a generally accepted number in the neighborhood or in the greater neighborhood as a result of a number of minor variances. And planning has reviewed it and found it to be acceptable. So you make that what you want, but I would argue that that is a minor variance and has very little impact on surrounding property. He talks about established neighborhood, and as has been seen, up and down the street and on surrounding streets, there has been a number of renovations and new homes, and I don't think that this is offending the neighborhood character. Pardon me. Then we go to Mr. Corrigan. He talks about trees. There was a tree in the backyard beside the garage. It was an undersized, unprotected tree. It has been cut down, yes, but it's been inspected by forestry, and they have no issues. There is no objection from forestry, and therefore the trees are not an issue. And we talk about soft landscaping and absorption of rain, etc. First of all, this lot is graded properly and the water does not flow onto neighboring properties. This proposed development will not impact that. However, and it doesn't say it anywhere, the intent is to install what we call French drains. French drains are effectively pits in the ground, which are filled with aggregate, and absorb the water or collect the water from rain, etc., and then disperse it slowly through the sidewalls into the surrounding earth. So this development would not impact whatever flooding issues there presently are, and will not impact surrounding properties. So it's not an issue about landscaping. There we go. I'm sorry, Stephanie, I didn't get your first last name, but...
Just to let you know, you're 4.5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Stephanie speculated about rentals, et cetera, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but I doubt that that's the case as long as the Berezinskis are resident, because they need the elevator, whether anybody else believes that or not. They talked about a driveway. There was an approval for the driveway the way it is, and I have a note from the city clerk stating the decision of council to allow that driveway. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay. Once again, the variants themselves are minor, both in size and in impact. Some of them are a little larger, but certainly the impact doesn't affect them. As a matter of fact, the third floor is a half floor. It's not even a real floor. So even though it's counted in the GFA, it has no impact. There is no issue regarding water or flooding. There is no issue regarding forestry.
Okay, you're 10 seconds, and I'm going to cut you off. You're at 6 minutes.
Okay, so am I cut off or not?
Well, yeah, it's 6 minutes now. Sorry. But I'm going to see if...
So my last...
Yeah, go ahead. What did you want to say?
My last comment is that planning supports the application.
Okay. Let me see if the panel members have any questions. No? Mr. Niffel, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. So there are no questions, so we'll take it into committee for a decision then. Okay. Discussion?
I'll start off. When I first looked at this, I thought it is a large building compared to the neighborhood, right, and the buildings that are around it, specifically the footprint. But comparing the actual plans to the variances, I think I was surprised at how small the variances were given the size of the house. And I think, as the speakers commented on, a lot of the variances are, I think, minimized or focused because of third floor is really focused to the middle. And the first floor is the only part that pushes up against the depth variance. So I don't know. I'm a bit torn on this one, but I do think that the comments and the conditions that planning is putting forward do kind of reflect, I think, a way to kind of minimize the impacts of something that is undoubtedly large. So I don't know. I'm actually leaning towards supporting it.
Okay. Any other comments, panel members?
I could weigh in now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Niffel.
I was also very much on the fence on this one. I can see advantages and disadvantages, but in the end, the point that was made by one of the objectors, I think, is extremely relevant, and that is that the people raising the strongest objections are the most impacted people on either side. I can understand the planning department recommendation to try and make the depth less overpowering. I don't know that in effect is going to be all that helpful. I appreciate the attempt to step back the depth, but there's still, it's a very deep building on the main floor. I'm not supporting it at this point.
Okay, Mr. Clay.
Yeah, I'll weigh in. I'm familiar with this neighborhood, and there are changes that are occurring, just as many neighborhoods that are in transition in the city, and we have to expect that changes are going to happen, and not everyone's going to be happy about them. I too, I read all the material. I looked at this one in detail. I was kind of on the fence as well. I think this committee generally is not a big fan of NIMBYism for the sake of NIMBYism. I mean, just because people think it doesn't looks large or it's ugly isn't necessarily a reason for or should impact our decision. In this case, Peter makes a good point. Some of the variances that are being proposed on the surface and individually don't appear to be dramatic. But I am struck by the representations by those in opposition. We don't often see opposition from residences that basically surround this property. We've got opposition from the north, opposition from the south, opposition from across the street, opposition from in behind. And I do think the process is set up to at least reflect on the legitimacy of those kinds of comments from those who are going to be most directly affected. And in that regard, I am sympathetic to some of the community concerns. The Ratepayers Association arguably represents the position of the entire community. I'm not sure that's always the case, but the representative from Swansea Area Ratepayers Association gave a fairly eloquent perspective of this application. For those reasons, I think I'm leaning towards refusing this application.
Okay, I echo all the comments made, and I too was sort of struggling with this one. I think the one comment that was made by one of the objectors with respect to the side yard, I kind of impacted me a lot. I know it's not a lot of difference, but it's a big, massive wall. And I don't think that it's fair to say that a sidewall does not impact a neighbor, particularly when it's that close. So, again, some of the variances, they do look minor, but cumulatively, and going with my question to the Swansea Area Ratepayers rep is yes, there are changes, but did those houses in fact have a cumulative, like have all these variances, or were they just, perhaps depth and not FSI? So for those reasons, I too would be leaning toward refusing the application, but I leave it in your hands, so we'll need a motion now.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to forward a motion to refuse the application as they don't believe it. As indicated, the people most impacted are those that are immediately adjacent.
Okay, have a motion moved by Mr. Nipfel to refuse the application. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Okay, the application is refused. And Mr. Reed, are you dissenting? Okay, with Mr. Reed is dissenting. Okay, thank you to everyone who spoke today and taking the time to participate. I'm sorry, Madam Deputy.
Anybody who wishes to be informed of an appeal to TLAB should be sending a email to the general email at Committee of Adjustment Toronto and East York, and just request a copy of the decision be emailed to you. Please provide your email address. Thank you.
Okay, panel members, I just checked with staff. They've been trying to get a hold of the person listing to speak on number 6 for over an hour, so I think we should go ahead and hear that item now, because Mr. Giordano had indicated that this individual is now supporting the application, and although we can't accept the material now, so can you please get Mr. Giordano on the line? So we'll be hearing 3 BALSAM right now, which is going back to item number 6.
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Okay. So I don't think the panel members needed a presentation. If I could just have you identify yourself once again for the record, just because we're starting anew here.
Peter Giordano, David Small Designs, 1440 here, Ontario Street, Mississauga, the authorized agent.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, just to confirm that we don't need a presentation. Are there any questions? I will note that some changes were made in terms of the height, and Mr. Giordano, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you originally had 10.11. Then for the length, 21.31 is what you had before. The third variance remains the same, and the final variance for height under the old bylaw was 12.13. I think it was.
That's correct.
That's correct.
We had a third story previously proposed, and that went from a third story to a clear story, which is just
Right.
open to the second floor below.
Right, so those were the changes from what you had before. Okay,
And we eliminated 3 variances from that list.
okay, great. Panel members, do you have any questions of Mr. Giordano?
Chair, just a couple. I did notice in the letters of support that the support was mostly from people that were some distance away, but you now have support for one of the adjacent neighbors?
We have support, we have emails, personal emails that came directly to our client from both neighbors. He's had extensive conversations with both neighbors. The neighbor that we were waiting to hear spent over an hour in his house discussing it, and everything went really well. The email response we have from him is extremely positive. And then we had a neighbor's 2 or 3 houses to the east of him that were previously in opposition, and they're no longer presenting in opposition. So we feel that entire court is generally supportive of our presentation.
Great, thanks. I was just looking at the site plan and for this property, and I just looking for clarification. It overlays the new building against the existing structure, but in the red line, it does speak to demolishing a existing one-story building. The existing building's 2 stories. Is that, it says remove existing one-story dwelling. It's an existing 2-story dwelling. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct. That note is an anomaly. It should say 2-story.
Okay.
Any further questions, panel members? No? Okay. We'll take it into committee. Discussion and a motion.
Madam Chair, I believe that this application is an improvement for our committee last time, and I believe that's the reason you've got letters, emails of support versus opposition to some of the properties. I don't have any difficulty with it before us. Unless my colleagues like this, I would like to move approval, planning condition and forestry condition number 3.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, including the forestry condition number 3, planning condition in the March 13th report. Do I have a seconder? That's moved by Mr. Nipfel.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? Your application's been approved unanimously, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The next item is item number 8, 2908 St. Clair Avenue East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plans, and elevations. If I could have the agent please identify himself.
Yes, it's Park Naraki, the architect and agent representing the owner.
Thank you.
Application.
Panel members, do you need a presentation? I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward. Are there any questions? No? Okay, we'll take it into committee for a decision then.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, I had one question.
Oh,
Perhaps I'm misreading the information, but as I read the information, it appears that there are currently 7 parking spaces and the proposal is for 6. Is that correct?
I didn't hear you, sir.
As I read the drawings, it looks as though you currently have 7 parking spaces. You're proposing to retain 6. Is that correct?
That's correct. We had to take away one of the parking spots that are there now to make room for the City of Toronto standards for parking, for moving a car into a parking spot and moving it out of a parking spot. And the existing parking spot number 3 did not allow for the standards to work. So we had to remove that spot legally. Although it is still an area, it's not being consumed by anything. It's just because of the columns in the underground parking, that parking spot is not accessible via the new standards, parking standards.
So would it be correct to say that the purpose that you're removing 1 parking space? Because
we are removing 1 parking space, correct. We were having to add 2 because of the 2 additional units that are being proposed at the basement level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? No further questions? Okay, we'll take it into committee for a decision then.
Yeah, I'd be happy to put forward a motion. I think this is very minor and, intensification of an existing building and creating some new rental units. And that's a positive thing, particularly on a main street. So I move to approve with no conditions.
Motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay.
Yeah, sure. And I just add that they're adding 6 or 7 new bicycle parking spots too, which I think we should be encouraging and supporting as well. I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, your application has been approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The next item is item number 9, 193 Holborn Avenue. And is the agent there? Mr. Farzam Baboudi?
Yes.
Can you just
Good afternoon.
identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Sherwin Farzam Behudi. I'm from the San Jose Engineering, and I'm representing the owners.
Okay, one moment. Do you have the person who wants to speak on the line? Yes. Okay, I believe this item needs to be deferred. Is that correct? Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. The matter was to be heard in February, but it was pulled from the agenda because there was an error in the height variance. The applicant got a revised zoning review, but when we were producing the notice for today's hearing, the correction or the new variance height didn't get recorded, and it was only picked up this morning by the applicant. So we would have to send out a new notice. It's the new height will be 9.91 meters, I believe. In addition, planning didn't review the application under the 9.91 height, so they're going to need extra time to review that because they may have an issue.
Okay, I know.
So if it's
we're
going to be
really
deferred, it would be deferred for 3 months. But if
Okay.
the applicant is able to resolve issues with planning, then we might be able to squeeze it on sooner.
Okay.
But I understand that there's a neighbor
Yeah.
who wants to speak today.
Okay, can you put Ms. Kretschmer on, please?
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you start by identifying yourself, please, for the record and your address?
Hi, Lindsay Kretschmer, 195 Holborn Avenue.
Did you hear what was just said, that there is something that needs to be corrected, specifically the height variance? It should be listed as 9.91, which means planning needs to review this application. And for that reason, we have to potentially defer the application.
So, will we be discussing this item today at all, do you think?
No. Assuming the deferral carries, what will happen is the item will come back in up to 3 months from now. The sooner the applicant gets the correct information in, the faster it can be reviewed, and then notices will go out again. So you would receive notification. Just one Deputy Secretary Treasurer just wants to add something.
Yeah, just through you, Madam Chair, if the owner of 195 Holborn does have concerns with the application, it would be advisable that those concerns be raised with the agent, and because it may lead to further revisions to the proposal when it comes back. And I would advise the agent to reach out to this neighbor to listen to what their concerns are and see if there's any way to maybe revise the proposal to better address what their issues are.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to the agent then. So you're aware of what's happened, so we will have to look at a deferral. And further to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer's comments, I think it would be in everybody's best interest if you got in touch with the resident at 195 Holborn to discuss any of her concerns so that everything can sort of be dealt with before it comes back.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Panel members, so as you've heard, this item needs to be deferred, so to the deferral. And including recirculation fees? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'd move the deferral with recirculation fees.
Okay, so do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to defer the application, including recirculation fees, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? And that's, sorry, to a maximum of 3 months. Okay, so that has been approved unanimously. And just to the applicant again, The faster you get the stuff in, the faster we can get it back on an agenda for you.
Sure. Just one quick question. Recirculation fee, that means I have to apply again, submit the application form and the fee for the committee or another fee involved?
It's just the cost of having to mail out the notice again. And we'll notify you of how much and when that should be made.
Did you get that?
Sorry, my microphone wasn't on.
Okay, so it's basically the cost of mailing out the notices again. And the planning will let you know what that is. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So I can submit everything today.
Well, if you have it ready, sure. But I would suggest you also speak to the neighbor who was just on the line at 195, so you can just show her the potential changes and address her concern, if any.
Sure. I try to talk to her.
Okay, you do that. Okay, thank you. Okay, the final item in this morning's time slot is 361 Kane, item number 10. The committee has before it a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Joanne Lamb, the agent, a presentation materials, including plans, elevations, satellite images, photographs, and a shadow study. We have a staff report from the manager, permits and enforcement parking, 12 form letters in support from occupants on Kane and Cameron. And if I can have the agent identify herself, please.
Hello, my name is Joanne Lamb, and I'm from Picnic Design, representing Stephanie Vieira and Nelson Andrade.
Thank you. Panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go straight to questions? Does anybody have any questions? No? Mr. Clay?
I guess one of the issues that obviously presents itself from the material is the issue of the front yard parking.
Correct.
And we have a report from Transportation Services, which I assume you've seen,
yes.
Which is basically requiring a condition that the front yard parking driveway area be returned to its original soft landscaping. I see you have sent in a letter disputing that. So I just want to have a bit of a discussion about that issue.
Okay.
Perhaps you can share with me your perspective.
This is something that we understand where transportation is coming from. And if this is a new build or if it's a completely redo of this house, then I would absolutely propose that to be some sort of softscaping to be the case to satisfy the requirement of transportation, and furthermore, just simply for good drainage practice. However, this was done in 2007, and at the time, as proposed, the driveway was proposed to be the whole way going all the way to the street, and it has been permitted and approved by the city, and so we're asking that to be essentially a legal non-conforming condition to be accepted as is. And really, furthermore, this application, our clients is simply trying to propose a minor rear addition to accommodate the challenges of her multi-generational family. So there's really no intention to touch anything in front. So we would like the condition to not be imposed, if possible.
Any other questions, panel members? Are there any further questions or not? No? Okay. We'll take it into committee then for a discussion.
So, sorry, Chair, I apologize. Can we just go out of committee for a second? I have one
Sure.
question.
Okay, we're out of committee. Go ahead, Mr. Clay.
The agent. So this is a semi, right? Ms. Lamb?
Yes, I'm here.
This is a semi?
This is a semi-detached, correct.
So have you had a discussion about the addition on the back with the adjoining semi owner?
Yes, the adjoining owner supports the application, and they've written one of the support letters.
Okay, are there any further questions?
If I may add, there are 12 support letters all within the central the intersection of 361 Kane.
We have them. I just want to be clear, just to go back to this approval. I can't find your note for some reason. So I thought it said, so you're saying that council approved that in 2006? So you're saying hang on a second. I've got staff is going to weigh in on that. So just let me ask the Deputy Secretary Treasurer.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's the excess pavement in the boulevard. There's a curb cut, but they've paved beyond what they're permitted to have.
I see.
So the right-of-way or municipal boulevard transportation services is asking that they remove the portions that are in excess of what they were approved.
Okay, so they're actually speaking to what was approved way back when. Like the applicant is saying that in 2006.
They're objecting to the excess paving on the city boulevard. So when you get a licensed parking space, it has to be a certain width. They've gone from one lot line to the other lot line, but it's in the city boulevard.
Right, what I was getting at, I saw something from the applicant that said they had some kind of council approval from 2006. So I'm just trying to get. Yeah, so can you just elaborate on that again? Because this is to the applicant now, because I'm still a little confused. Is that something?
Sure.
So you're saying that you had legal non-conforming approval from council for that parking?
No, I'm only referring to the site plan drawing that was part of the permit application that had zoning approval. It's attached on the second page of the response letter to transportation. That one shows that the driveway goes all the way to the road, essentially. And it is always meant to be a driveway, and it is just a driveway. There is no parking on there. The parking is in the garage.
I'm sorry, what's? Okay, if we're just going to make a phone call to try.
We're going to call up the Google Maps.
We're trying to get Google Maps just to see, get a better picture of it.
Oh, there are aerial photos that's included in our package.
Right. So if you
It's okay.
see where the curb cut is,
Yep.
and then see that there's. Can you go right?
Madam Chairman, I have. Madam Chairman.
Yes, Carl. Yes, Mr. Niffel.
So see where the.
I have the same question that you have. The issue is, I gather, not whether this is good or bad, but whether or not the applicant at some point in the past received approval to pave that portion of the boulevard that's under question. I would think that it's not a good idea to maintain that existing paving because it's very close to the corner. And someone even notwithstanding the objective of not using it for parking, someone could use it for parking. Pulling out of that space would, in my view, create somewhat of a danger at the corner. It's still not clear what approval may have been given for that boulevard to be paved.
And I mean, it looks like it applies to both halves of the semi too, if you look at this picture now.
Through you, Madam Chair, if you look at the Google Maps image,
Yep.
where the curb cut is, right?
It's
That's
single,
that's what's approved, and then
Okay,
it's
I see.
on the other side. If it's not required to, I mean, if you impose the condition and the applicant's able to negotiate with transportation that it not be removed, then the condition would be satisfied that way. So
So
I
we're
don't.
basically talking those two strips kind of in front of the stairs.
Well, it's just for the subject application for 361
Yeah, but
Kane.
technically, yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Panel members, do you have any further questions? If not, we'll take it into committee. No further questions? Okay, let's take it into committee then.
I'll just start. I kind of, like Carl makes a good point. Just looking at the Google map image, street view image, I initially thought that, well, maybe what they've done is expanded the driveway to make it into a walkway. But it doesn't appear that's the case at all. In fact, it just dead ends. That portion just dead ends, which kind of implies that it could be used for parking. Which so I kind of get what transportation services is getting at. So it just seems to me that, Chair, you mentioned whether the applicant can negotiate with that, but I think we need to leave that condition in to allow that process to conclude.
Okay, any further thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, Larry. I think, and even in the aerial photograph in the package, page 306, there's a vehicle parked in that portion of the driveway. I think we're focusing on this part of the file because I personally have no issue with the addition that's being proposed. I think it's over an existing basement. It's only 7 feet deep, and it makes a lot of sense in this area with a lot of houses with very high lot coverage. So I have no issues with the actual variances proposed, but I would support keeping the transportation condition in.
Okay, are either of you ready for a motion?
Sure. I'll put forward a motion to approve subject to the transportation condition.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay, to approve the application, including the transportation condition in the June 17th report. All in favor? Your application has been approved unanimously with the transportation condition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this concludes the morning session. It's 12:35, so we're in recess until 1:30.
Anita, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I was looking at, was the volume better this time round?
You're still sort of cutting in and out.
Okay, here's the problem. The speakers are on the bottom of my tablet. And I have it vertically. Positioned. Okay. If I turn it sideways, which puts the speakers on the edge, I lose all the elements that allow me to mute or unmute or don't go off the screen. So I don't know what else to do.
Just lean right in.
Yeah, just lean in for the afternoon.
Either that or I can pick this up like that. Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Maybe I'll pick it up when I talk. Okay.
Or, yeah. Do you have...
I don't know why when I turn... when I turn it, that's the best. If I turn it, I can see everything, and the speakers are on the side, but I don't have the ability then to mute or unmute.
Ah, okay.
Those symbols disappear.
All right.
I would say just try leaning in a bit.
Just lean in a bit more when you speak.
Okay.
All right.
You know what? I'll get with things on them. Right. Okay.
Okay. Enjoy your lunch.
Later.
Okay. Who wants to enlighten me on how this works? I just took my glasses off, sorry. You know, the surgery was great, but close up, it's just still sucks.
Oops, it got twisty. There we go.
Well, it wasn't too bad. Windermere, I thought it was going to be even